Love when the G-Man joins us. And, of course, as always, he joins us on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. G-Man, thanks for joining us here on the show. We always appreciate the time. Let me first ask you about last night. How much of last night is that teams like the Celtics and Bucks are just at a different level right now than the Kings?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. They are at a different level. They've got playoff experience, championship pedigree. And I think that, along with the fact, and you don't like to sound like you're whining about it, because I'm certainly not whining about it, but just the reality of a schedule. When you're playing your fifth game in 7 nights, and you've come on a road trip that had you first play in the Central Time Zone, then in the Eastern Time Zone, then in the Mountain Time Zone, and you come home on a back-to-back to play the Boston Celtics with 2 days rest, and stinging from an unexpected 1-point loss to the Utah Jazz a couple of nights earlier, I was not at all surprised at the outcome. I was certainly hopeful that the Kings would find a way to be a bit more competitive, but I thought Boston did a masterful job, and they showed why they were in the hunt for a championship last year, making it to the finals.
The sultry tones of the G-Man, one of my favorite, Nick, man. I'm growing up watching this guy, listening to this guy. You know, it's always a beautiful time when anytime I'm embraced or have the opportunity to speak to the G-Man. You know, we giving people flowers in 2023. But G-Man, you kind of spoke to the tired legs. You have a ton of experience in this league. Do you think with the 3 or 4 days off on Friday that they can regain their legs in your experience? Is this something that they just kind of needed a few days off?
Well, it certainly, you should. I mean, today is a full day off. Tomorrow will be a legitimate full-fledged practice. And then you should be tuned up and, you know, another back-to-back, and not an easy one. Nothing is easy at this stretch of the season. Every game kind of goes under the microscope a little bit more. And it's interesting. Sometimes, you know, you listen to various Kings fans and social media, and yeah, they're excited they're there, but then the sky is falling because you've lost 2 games in a row. Well, I don't buy into that particularly, but I think they'll be, you know, refocused and refreshed and ready to go against Phoenix on Friday night.
Gary Gerould is with us here. Cattles and Ramie. JJ in for Ramie today on Sactown Sports. I was looking at this, G-Man, before the show. The Kings are 16-14 against the Eastern Conference. They're 27-15 against the West. Do you think they have a tough time against the East because of the style of play, or is it just they're not as familiar with the East as they are with the West?
Well, then I have an answer. You could probably factor that in, yes. But, you know, for the most part, I mean, aside from, you look at the top 3 in the East, basically, and you know, those are really, really good basketball teams. You're talking about Milwaukee, you're talking about Boston, you're talking about Philadelphia. And the Kings have come up short a couple of times against teams like Charlotte, like the New York Knicks the first time around. Everybody has clunkers over a course of an 82-game season. But there are some that the Kings had. I mean, they hit giant potholes, and you just scratch your head and say, wow, how did that happen? So you just kind of ride with it. And I think that, you know, you don't look back as much as you just look forward to the next opportunity. And the guys will always tell you, after you get spanked, it's just like, okay, the best thing about the NBA is that you get to redeem yourself usually within 48 hours. So let's see how the Kings respond against the Phoenix Suns. Critical game again. You know, you're down to your final 10, and I don't know how it's looking. I haven't looked at the standings today, but I know last night it was only, I think it was 3.5. I think it's 3.5 now that separate 4 through 12 in the Western Conference. So you talk about every game having special significance. Everybody's, you know, towing the mark and saying, man, we got to deliver. And the Kings find themselves in that same spot. We all want them to have success. Obviously, back, you know, when we were in training camp in October, if somebody would have told any of us that the Kings were going to be, with 10 to go, 14 over 500, and holding down the number 3 spot in the West, we've been doing cartwheels in the streets. I think sometimes we lose sight of the big picture and perspective. And I try to keep that in mind most of the time. But I want them to win as badly as anybody. And I've been re-energized this year, as the fan base has been. I think Mike Brown and his staff have just done an amazing job. Monty McNair putting together some pieces. And sure, there's a lot of work to be done defensively. And there's no question that when you get to the playoffs, it becomes a different kind of NBA basketball. Some say it slows down. I don't know that Mike Brown would buy into that. He wants to play with pace regardless. And it's not just pace of getting the ball in play quickly. It's pace when you're deep in the shot clock. Guys moving, guys cutting. Sabonis trying to work his magic at the elbow, dropping off passes to cutters and slicers or spraying to the corners for threes. That's the other part of pace that I think sometimes gets overlooked. So it's going to be really intriguing to me, the Kings get into the playoffs, to see what kind of work they can do. And one of the things that I've loved about Mike Brown from the get-go, it's not like getting to the playoffs is the here all, there all. It's making some, inroads once you're in the playoffs, playing like a championship contender. I love that. And it's something that we haven't seen in so long. It's really reinvigorating for everybody.
Man, I feel warm inside, G-Man, just hearing you say those type of things and it coming from you. Last one for me, the Western landscape, and I'm glad you brought up the big picture. It changes every night, and you got Cat coming back. You got Paul George being injured. We don't know what's going on with Kevin Durant. Zion, it seems he may be close. Who scares you, G-Man? Who when you look around the Western Conference, who would you not want the Kings to see in that first round?
Well, I think that you could probably make a case for just about anybody for some, for varying reasons. I think Phoenix is awfully good. Even without Durant, they're still a real handful. And they've got veteran playoff experience, and they've, shaped their roster a little bit with the arrival of KD. The Clippers, you mentioned, I've gone a blank.
Paul George
going down last night. That could have huge implications for them. I think that they're really deep, and I could be concerned about them, but I'm the kind of guy, I'm concerned about everybody.
Understandable.
I don't think there's anybody that you just say, okay, this is a piece of cake. That doesn't exist in the Western Conference. It scares me because the Kings have got two critical games next week up in Portland against the Trailblazers. I've heard talk about, will they shut Dame down if it looks like they're not going to be, close to a play-in opportunity? Doesn't make any difference because time and again, we've seen teams step up. Utah was a perfect example a couple of nights ago. They're playing without three key players, including their all-star Markkanen. And what do? They came out and, man, they just took it to Sacramento. You find yourself down 25 in the first half, you've got more than a giant hole to dig your way out of. And to the Kings' credit, they did get back, had a 3-point lead a couple of times in the fourth quarter. But look at all the energy you have to expend. And that's coming on the fourth game in 6 nights or something like that. And but that's life in the NBA. Everybody goes through that. So I don't have a good answer to your question about who wouldn't you want to face. They all scare me. But I'm just happy as heck that it looks like the Kings are good again. Just make sure you've got home court, or make sure that you get into the top 6, and then it's an added luxury if you can have home court in that first round.
G-Man, you're the best. It's always an honor to catch up with you. We'll talk to you soon, and continue to have fun this season. What a ride it's been.
Well, let's keep it going. Let's ride that wave. I jump on board. On board. Here we go.
Thank you, G-Man. There goes our friend Gary Gerould.